half a half-job gag. Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes? It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martinis dry, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those long cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just another girl.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Callista Soul, and you're watching NLC Trans. Tonight I'm here with my dear friends and co-hosts, Tara Alexander and Stacy Dozier. Renee could not be with us tonight. And we have a very special guest tonight, our resident political analyst and political activist analyst. Whatever you want to be called, we'll call you that. You can be both an analyst and an activist, because we're gonna actually talk to you and have you sort of analyze what's going on with House Bill 6599, which I understand was supposed to be voted out of committee today and wasn't. So
Wasn't voted on, not voted out of committee.
Right.
Yeah, postponed until next week.
Yeah, and so and I'm hearing some interesting stuff about that, and so maybe you can tell us sort of what's going on. And you were already on Channel 8 today earlier, right?
Yes.
We should probably start with what the bill is.
Yes.
And what's happened to date.
So why don't you give our audience the rundown on what the bill is and what's going on and.
The bill basically adds gender identity and expression to the current anti-discrimination law. Wherever there is the word sex, they add gender identity and expression.
Right.
So basically, it doesn't really change the bill that much. Just adds that phrase, and it also has a definition for it in the bill. And we first introduced the bill in 2006. It's 2007 rather.
Right.
And we just about introduced it every year except last year because of Love Makes the Family closing. We had to reorganize.
Right. And it was a short session, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Right? So.
It was a short session last year, and we were in a reorganization year, so the bill never got put together.
But this is our year.
Yes, it is.
It's absolutely going to happen this year. You know, we did testify for the Judiciary Committee, and it was very promising.
Last
the
Monday,
numbers.
the 21st.
And so I'm hearing that that there's somebody is trying to add an amendment to our bill now.
Actually, they're trying to add several amendments, not just one.
Okay.
They want to add one that if you commit a crime or are dressed, that it becomes a felony. So if you commit a misdemeanor, it gets bumped up to a felony.
So if you're nude, it's okay?
Yes. But if you're in disguise, they consider that will be considered a felony.
Okay. All right, that's going to be an interesting one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where they want a teacher in elementary school to be moved out of their class to another class. So they won't terrorize the kids.
Terrorize the kids.
If the teacher is going to transition during the school year,
That's right.
then they would automatically move her to another school system.
Yes.
You know, I haven't noticed kids being particularly bothered by it. It's
Yeah.
It's been
it's
happening.
other people who are maybe afraid of diversity a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been happening for a while now, and we don't have this existing stock of terrorized kids from the teachers that have already transitioned. So I don't know why they expect suddenly kids would start being, traumatized by somebody transitioning in their life.
Yeah.
And I was curious about that one, whether they were limiting it, not to give anyone ideas, limiting it to school teachers, or does it include the school nurse and the administrators, the janitors, the bus drivers, and every other potential adult in the kid's life?
I believe it's just the teachers.
Yeah.
We haven't
Wow.
really seen the amendments. They're just
Yeah.
circulating around the Capitol.
Mm.
And the other one is about, oh, I can't remember it right now. It's just, I know there was 3 of them that they came up, we went, you're kidding about that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
The whole teacher thing, it's really bothersome for me because it's sort of, we're trying to get an anti-discrimination bill, and now we're being asked to discriminate against certain people within the bill. It's like,
Right.
personally, I would rather not have a bill at all than to have a discriminatory bill.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well,
It
what
just-
are you teaching the kids? You're teaching
Yeah.
the kids it's okay to discriminate, you know? That just because you don't happen to like somebody, this is okay to discriminate against them.
Yeah.
And not just discriminate, but make them go away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Force them to hide.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's really rubs me the wrong way, I'm afraid.
Right.
And as far as okay, so it's a felony to commit a crime while dressed. Well, all right. So I'm assuming that the intent here is that if you're not trans, and you're trying to trying to make believe you're trans so that you can dress as the opposite sex and go commit a crime, or disguise your identity while
Yeah.
committing a crime or
Right.
something.
Right.
Okay, well that it sort of makes sense, but it's
If wearing a disguise during the commission of a crime bumps every misdemeanor
Right.
immediately to a felony, that's a little concerning.
Yeah.
that's kind of
And,
yeah.
and
it's-
Yeah.
how far do you go for it to count as a disguise?
Right.
Yeah.
Is a hat and glasses, is a traditional ski mask a disguise?
Well, actually, I believe what they said in the amendment, it would be for people a man dressed as a woman. So not only
Very
that, so
specifically.
Very
Wow.
specific. So therefore, a bank robber who has a disguise on, this would not happen to him.
Yeah. Or
Wow,
or
so-
a woman committing a crime
Right.
wearing male clothing.
Right.
So this is discriminatory too. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Not that the whole crime thing is. I mean, obviously, I'm not planning to go commit crimes, and it wouldn't matter anyway because, because obviously, if I dressed as a man, that wouldn't count, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
But that-
again discriminatory.
Right.
That ends up raising the fundamental point of the only objection that we've really heard to the bill, and that's from people that don't see you as female, people that look at you and consider you to be a man.
Yeah. So what does that mean? That not that I'm planning to commit a crime, but if I go commit a crime, does it mean that now I have to prove in court that I'm a woman? Okay.
Well, the whole thing is just...
That's not hard. Your documentation already does.
Yeah, but it just, I
Yeah.
don't know, this is craziness.
It also
Right.
paints people who are transgendered as potentially criminal,
Right.
criminal, or more potentially criminal than others, suggesting that people.
Yeah, I don't like it. It doesn't feel very good, does it?
It doesn't even hold up when you take the thinly veiled explanation that you get, which is, no, I'm not saying transgender people are more likely to commit crimes. What I'm suggesting is someone who's likely to commit a crime would pretend to be transgendered in order to potentially get away with it. The crime is still a crime.
Right,
It doesn't
exactly.
stop being a crime just because you have protections for transgender people in the anti-discrimination laws.
Right.
Yeah. What I liked during the hearing was where William O'Brien from the Connecticut Right to Life said the reason why we're doing this so that we get a break in our insurance.
Yes.
Yes,
know.
that was great.
Will insurance companies be required to give a male to female transgender person a break on their insurance?
Yeah. Obviously, the members of the committee thought that was pretty absurd. But
Well, I mean, if anything, it's an effective commentary on pointing out the inequitable differences between men and women in insurance rates.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, yes, my insurance rates did go down. But, and I'm not complaining about that, but that obviously, I didn't transition to get my insurance rates to go down.
But when you
insane.
transitioned, you did lose a ton of testosterone.
I did,
Right.
yeah.
And you look at a trans man,
who goes up
Right,
in
his
testosterone.
goes up, so did he transition so he will pay more for insurance?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but the whole amendment thing just drives me crazy. It's
Well,
like,
they're trying
what are
to
we
delay
doing?
the bill. That's what they're trying to do, is take up enough time so the bill's never brought to a vote.
Yeah, which is just mean because they know it has overwhelming support.
Yeah.
Right.
If we can get it to the floor of the House and the floor of the Senate, it'll pass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they're using whatever tactics they can.
It will pass in the Judiciary Committee, you know, we have the votes there. It's
Yeah.
just this delaying tactic. You know, they're succeeded in delaying it today, and who knows what will happen next week.
yeah, yeah. It's just crazy. It blows me away, and certainly yeah. In this day and age, you know, an anti-discrimination bill, and certainly our own Ernie Hewitt was talking about that. You know, it's just not about delaying it, but discrimination. It's like
how necessary it is to fight discrimination everywhere you find it.
yeah.
Right.
I was really I was very impressed with
So
Hewitt.
since you bring him up,
Yeah, I like him.
we want to take an opportunity to point out to the viewers on our show tonight
Yes.
who might be watching, if you're in the New London area, if you're in House District 39, your representative, Ernest Hewitt, is on the Judiciary Committee. And if you're in House District 44, which is Sterling, Killingly, and parts of Killingly and Plainfield, your representative, May Flexer, is also on the Judiciary Committee. We would strongly encourage anyone who's watching that has those representatives to give them a call and let them know how you feel about House Bill 6599, an act concerning discrimination, which intends to add gender identity or expression to the state's anti-discrimination laws. We would ask that you ask them to support it, and that you ask them to support it without amendments.
Yeah. So anyway.
So yes, Ernie Hewitt was at the
Yeah.
actually attended a good portion of the hearings last Monday and spoke very powerfully from his own experiences too
Yeah.
about dealing with discrimination.
Yeah. And he wasn't the only one. But
wasn't the
but
only one.
he's from this area.
Yep.
So
New London rep.
yeah. So I thought that was really great, and I had a really good time at the hearing, and I thought it went really well. We had very little opposition. Very little testimony in opposition to the bill. Most of it was in favor of the bill.
So, I mean, with such overwhelming support, both from the people who attended and what I'm hearing, the legislators themselves,
Yeah.
the effort by a few to block it is just arrogant.
Yeah, yeah. And they're using any
Politics.
delaying tactic they can.
Yeah.
It really smacks of a personal dislike
Yeah.
and not of some legitimate legal concerns.
Right. And so, I mean, which flies in the face of public service if you're really interested in
The
serving
welfare of the
public-
society. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so hopefully it will get voted on next week.
Hopefully,
We'll
yes.
see what
Yeah.
happens. But
So when the Judiciary Committee does bring the bill to a vote, if they vote in favor, which we believe they will, it would go back to the House, right? And the House would decide if it had to be sent to any other committees.
It's not just the House, it'd be a joint
committee.
between the Senate and the House. They have a joint committee that sits down and looks to see where the bill will go next.
Okay. And if they decide not to send it to any other committees for review, then the next step is to have it called to a vote in the House.
Yes, yeah, because it's a House bill, therefore, it will go to the House first.
And passing the House would go to the Senate for debate and vote.
Right, yeah, and then it goes on to the governor.
So when it goes to the Senate, would there be another set of public hearings, or?
No, because the committee is a joint committee. There were senators and representatives
Gotcha.
on the committee.
Yeah.
However, if the Senate passes an amendment, then it goes back to the House and they have to vote on the amendment.
And the Senate and House would have an opportunity to have hearings in the full chamber, in full House. Full
Well, it's
Senate,
not
or
really hearings. They don't hear anybody. They have a debate.
debate. Okay.
Yeah.
right. Well, we know that it can be done. We've actually had legislation passed before, so this can be done.
2007, it passed the Senate 30-4.
Yep.
So hopefully, hopefully, with enough support, and certainly we have support in the General Assembly.
We do.
Without a doubt, and certainly the Connecticut people seem to be overwhelmingly in favor of
the
this.
state
So
overwhelmingly is in favor of equality and fairness,
Yeah.
including for us.
including for
Right.
us. Yeah. So God, let's see this happen. Anyway, I'm hopeful that it'll make it this year. But
You know, the governor's in favor of it.
yeah,
You know, he said
we know he'll sign it.
Right, he said not only would he sign it, but he'll advocate on behalf of
Yes.
the bill. And if you remember that Andrew McDonald, his
Yep.
chief legal counsel, came and spoke on behalf of the bill.
Yeah, that was very nice.
And we don't have a lot of sample from the Judiciary Committee hearing, but we do have one piece from one of the opponents, and we were going to take an opportunity, if everyone's up for it, to play those 11 minutes and then address some of the
Right.
the issues that get raised.
And that was courtesy of Connecticut Network, CTN, and you can actually see the whole thing if you go to www.ct-n.com.
Right.
And if you can't sleep, you can watch it, and you're guaranteed.
You fall asleep.
Yeah, it was like a...
Yeah, I should warn you that the entire hearing was 11 and a half hours,
Yeah.
and it covers lots of different things, not just HB 6599. So we've pulled out one selection here of opposition to HB 6599, so we can address some of the
sort of
concerns.
our nemesis in the FIC, the Family Institute of Connecticut, talking and not managing to do a very good job of talking, but anyway.
So if we can get it going.
Good afternoon, members of the Judiciary Committee. My name is Peter Wolfgang. I'm the president of Family Institute of Connecticut Action, and I am here today to oppose Bill 6599, an act concerning discrimination, or as it is known to us, the bathroom bill. You have my written testimony. I'm going to depart from it and just emphasize a few points. I want to start with something Andrew McDonald, Chief Legal Counsel for the Governor, said in his testimony. He talked about the history of this bill, and he talked about how in '06 you had so many votes, in '07 and '08 that there was an increase in support for this bill. But he stopped at 2008 for a reason. In 2009, for the first time, this bill died in committee. Former Senator McDonald singled out Senator Kissel for praise for supporting the bill, but I know that Senator Kissel, too, opposed this bill in 2009. In 2010, for the first time, this bill did not get a public hearing. So, I mean, the truth is, this bill actually crested at some point and then receded. And what I'm here today to ask you is that you continue this positive trend away from this bill. Now, regarding my reference to it as a bathroom bill, proprietors of any public accommodation are prohibited from discriminating against persons of any sex or sexual orientation in the full enjoyment of accommodations offered to the general public. The current law has exceptions for single-sex sleeping accommodations, bathrooms, and locker rooms. HB 6599 would circumvent all of those exceptions, which would still apply to sex, but would not apply to gender identity or expression. So in other words, this bill would allow men to enter women's public restrooms. That is a main reason for our opposition to this bill. If a father and his young daughter went to a public accommodation and the young girl needed to use the ladies' room, her own father could not go in with her, but a man who says he is transgendered could. This bill is a radical assault on the right to privacy and safety of all women and children on behalf of one of the smallest special interest groups. Nothing would prevent a sexual predator from pretending that he is confused about his sex to gain access to vulnerable women and children in what should be safe spaces for their accommodation and health. These are some of our reasons for opposing the bill. You have more in my written testimony. But at the end of the day, what concerns us is that this is a bathroom bill. This is a bill that would allow men to enter into women's restrooms, and we ask that you not support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wolfgang.
Good afternoon.
You said if this bill passed, nothing would prevent the sexual predators from taking the actions that you suggest might happen. What prevents them from doing that now?
Well, they'd certainly have more of a reason to do it. And men in general should not be allowed into women's bathrooms. At issue is the fact that you have an exception for sex, but not for gender identity and expression if this bill passes and men can enter women's bathrooms.
But my question to you is what prevents them from doing it now? Your answer, while a response, doesn't actually indicate what does that.
Well, I mean, there are laws that prevent crimes, obviously, from taking place in bathrooms in general. But I mean, why give sexual predators a pretext? Why give them an excuse to say, "Look, I'm transgendered, and that's why I went into the women's bathroom"? Obviously, it's there are laws for registered sex offenders.
And so those laws would actually exist if the crime was committed after entering the bathroom, even if this law passed, if this bill passed. Is that not correct?
Well, while laws exist to prosecute those who commit crimes or the sort of crimes that we're talking about, HB 6599 puts women and children at substantial additional risk of assault because men as a group cannot be questioned beforehand or curtailed from entering women's restrooms. You'll have more of it. It'll be harder to track. This bill should not pass for that reason.
Mr. Wolfgang, I recognize what your supposition is. I'm asking you, would the laws still be in existence?
Yes, the laws would still be in existence.
Thank you.
Do you have any examples of transgender men or women entering into the gender bathroom that they identify as and committing any sexual assaults?
No, I have no examples.
Do you have any examples, and maybe I can ask this of other people today too, do you have examples of folks who are transgender, perhaps they're male but they identify as a woman and they go into a men's room of being assaulted or harassed in any way?
No.
Yeah, well, as I listened to the testimony so far today, very moving about people who are living this every day, it seems like they've been harassed in many situations, and I imagine that bathrooms would just be another place where that could happen. And I think Representative Holder-Winfield's question gets to the fact that right now people generally go into the bathroom of the gender that they identify as today, and there's nothing stopping them right now, is there, from walking in, if their gender expression was a female, from walking into the female bathroom. Is that correct?
Our point is that, yeah, that's correct. Our point is that if you pass this bill, it opens up the possibility for much more of that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your answers. I would just argue that this is going on today, every day, is people who identify differently than their, if a woman, a man whose gender expression is female is going into restrooms right now, and you said you don't know of any incidents of harassment, so I just want to get that out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to get your, because you're focusing on this being the bathroom bill, and somehow that, in my mind anyway, seems to, on one hand, sort of trivialize it, and on the other hand, makes it seem perhaps more sensational in some ways than the bill, at least in many respects, appears to be. It's what its mission is all about. Someone who is obviously a male, someone who looks like me, let's say, shows up in a bridal shop wanting to try on wedding dresses. Based on what you've studied this area, you've been involved with it, at the present time, is there anything that prohibits that individual from doing that sort of thing? I mean, in terms of statute, I don't mean going and getting a restraining order. And let's say this person comes back every week, never actually buys a dress, but just goes through this process and goes into the fitting room, which is almost all for women, and comes back out, tries it on, asks for adjustments, tries a different one on, spends an hour or two there, comes back a week or a month later, does the same thing. Is there anything in our current legal structure that would stop that from happening? I'll start with that question. As far as you understand somebody, because it seems to me that's where someone who's expressing a different form of gender identification is doing so in a very clear-cut way.
Well, I think, Representative O'Neill, that possibly typical public nuisance laws might apply if someone's trying to run a business and there's a man that repeatedly shows up at a women's bridal shop wanting to try on dresses. If he's disrupting the business, if he's causing the customer base to decline, the sales to decline, then they may have recourse through the public nuisance type laws. But if this bill were to pass, then they wouldn't, because then that would be it would be discrimination not to allow them to come in and hurt your business.
Okay, so right now, as far as you know, because you can, for example, you see signs in restaurants and other places, no shirt, no shoes, no service, that sort of thing.
Right.
Right now, if somebody shows up, if I show up at a bridal shop wanting to try on wedding dresses, there's nothing that says that they are prohibited from saying, please leave. Or is there?
There's not a law specifically on point with that. I think what would happen is more like public nuisance type laws would set in. But I'm not aware of any law specifically, because it's not. I think it's something that most people don't contemplate happening. So I don't think the law has touched on it.
Because I think that what this legislation has always been depicted to me as, and maybe I'm misremembering, that it's really codifying the CHRO decision from, what is the year 2000 or so. In effect, what I'm told is that, in effect, this is already the law for the most part. So as far as you understand, then, under the application of the CHRO decision, that treated transgendered people and discrimination against them as a form of sexual discrimination, which is already prohibited by our law.
If CHRO has a guideline that
well, it's not a guideline. I'm sorry. It's a declaratory rule. I mean, I don't remember the name of the case, but I was just reading it a couple months ago.
Well, if it's something that would allow the sort of things that I mentioned in my written testimony, then we would oppose the CHRO rule as well, and we would ask you not to codify it.
Thank you. Mr. Wolfgang, in response to Representative O'Neill about the bridal situation, you said most people don't contemplate it happening, and you had a response which talked about because it doesn't happen at all. I think that's accurate. And so I asked you this question. You know, you say that if this bill passes, it would allow for the potential to harm a business. What happens if a woman does the exact same thing right now?
If a woman goes into a bridal shop and wants to try on dresses?
And continuously does it, what happens?
If she's being disruptive to the business, I imagine those same sort of general public nuisance laws would apply.
And so if this bill passed, that would apply, and so there would be no difference, right?
I think most people would understand that it would be potentially more disruptive.
The same laws would apply, correct?
Yes, the same laws would apply.
Thank you.
It's cycling.
Well, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. That was the Judiciary Committee hearing, and of course Peter Wolfgang, who is our nemesis.
He's a citizen of Connecticut with a different opinion.
Yes. Yes.
We respect his right to have a different opinion.
And we do. We absolutely do. Mm-hmm. I don't like what he has to say, but I'll defend his right to say it. But anyway, obviously, we certainly like Holder Winfield and Bai.
Yes.
But yeah, I think, and obviously we ran that just to sort of show you how really pathetic the opposition's arguments really are.
And how shallow too, And we definitely want to bring you some more clips of the judiciary testimony, because there were a lot of very powerful speakers.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of video.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have it ready for tonight. But we'll have it in future shows.
And you got to see the backs of our heads.
You got to see the backs of our heads.
We were there all day. and obviously we testified, but you testified for 3 minutes and sit there for 11 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. But he, I mean, there's definitely some concerns that he raises, and you know, when we respect his concerns, but you know, it's an opportunity to address some of those concerns, right?
Yes.
He mentioned 2009, 2010. 2010, he says there's no hearing on the bill, and that's an example of why the downward trend. There was no hearing on the bill, if I remember correctly, because we never raised it.
That's right. We never raised it because Love Makes a Family closed in 2009, and we were using their community organizers for the bill. So when they closed their doors, once they achieved marriage equality, we had to go out and find a new community organizer, Sally Tamarkin in Connecticut Equality. And she has been doing a wonderful job, but we took the year to let her get started and start, you know, organizing. And now we're ready to go in and reintroduce the bill.
Yeah. It's sort of picking your battle, too. It was a short session, and it was like, this isn't going to be our year, so.
Yeah.
All the other years in the short session, we only made it through the Judiciary Committee. So,
yeah.
So why go in and we knew they were going to be with the budget because last year there was a big budget debate. And so we decided not to raise the bill because it wouldn't go anywhere. So
Right.
it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, gee, you know, we're losing. It was,
No, it was by choice.
Right?
For all the sports fans out there, it was a rebuilding year.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, right.
And according to Peter's own admission, their primary concern with the bill is this concern about allowing men to enter women's restrooms. And unfortunately, it represents a point of view. It represents a point of view that completely misses the point. The AMA and the APA do not recognize you as a man.
Right.
So
Well, I'm not.
You're not. Peter does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Well,
AMA is American Medical Association,
Right.
and the APA is American Psychiatric Association.
Right.
you know, if I went,
We're not men entering women's bathrooms. We're trans women entering women's bathrooms.
right, if I went into a men's room, I would get beat up or something.
Or worse.
Or raped. Or, well, again,
Something, it would
not
not.
to fall victim to the same prejudice.
No, I know.
Because the other prejudice that,
I know, not all men are sexual predators.
unfortunately, that Peter's argument proposes is that you can't trust men. Period.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
If you're talking to someone and it's a man, you can't trust him.
Yeah.
It even says at one point, you can't question men prior to them entering the bathroom.
Why do you need to?
Which assumes that they all have that they have a greater likelihood of nefarious desires.
Right. Which is, it's crazy. And yes, you're absolutely right. It suggests something about men that just isn't true. I happen to like men. And I don't think that's true. But this whole notion that men are all sexual predators and that all transgender people are sexual predators, it's crazy. But anyway, the whole notion that this is actually happening, the reason that he can't come up with any examples is because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
However, there are cases of trans people going into bathrooms and being assaulted. There was one kid, a college kid, I think, that was slashed, viciously slashed in a bathroom.
Yep. A trans boy, I think it was, on a college campus, a young trans man that was in the bathroom, and somebody came running into the bathroom and pushed him into the sink, and I think broke the mirror, either used part of the porcelain or something, and made all kinds of slash cuts across the kid's chest.
Yeah.
Sent him to the hospital.
Vicious stuff. So that kind of stuff does happen.
Right. And, you know, if it was a problem, you know, Rhode Island passed a law in 2005, and, you know, it would have been all over the news.
Right.
And it hasn't.
Right.
Well, on top of which, the CHRO ruling that they talk about was passed in 2000.
Yes, it was.
The declaratory ruling was made in 2000, which, among other things, said that you know, as trans folk, we are protected in many areas of the law under the existing sex discrimination. And I think it was 2001 or 2001 when they made their announcement about the the rule of least astonishment.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
That in Connecticut, while if you have a certain number of employees, you're required to have bathrooms that are labeled for men and a bathroom labeled for women, that people should be using the bathrooms of the gender that they present as. The rule being that which restroom would you be least astonished to see me walk into?
Right.
That's the one I should be using.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. The point is to go to the bathroom, not to be disruptive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And honestly, and Bai was making an interesting point.
yeah, it's been happening
It
for
happens
10
every
years.
day. It's like we're sitting in a room full of trans people. It's like, guess what? It's happening all around you right
For
now.
11 and a half hours, trust me, there were a lot of people going to the bathroom at the state capitol that would have upset this man.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it happens. It's like, this isn't really a non-issue. And
Yeah, I mean, come on. I can say firmly, when a trans person is going to the bathroom, what they're thinking about is having to go to the bathroom. That's just,
And potentially early on in the transition, I just want to go to the bathroom, I just want to go to the bathroom, I don't want to get in a confrontation, I just need to pee and wash my hands and get the hell out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing, the whole notion that this is a bathroom bill is insulting.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a
Profoundly
it's a
insulting.
bill, it's an anti-discrimination bill. We want equality. It isn't about bathrooms.
We've got people all across the state that continue to lose their jobs, to lose their houses, lose family members in legal court cases and such
Yes.
because of discrimination against their gender expression
Yeah.
and their gender identity.
The
And
numbers are
that
awful.
is wrong.
We have a
That
it's
has to
completely
stop.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical. This kind of law doesn't cost money. It's about common decency. If anything, it saves money.
It saves money.
Right.
Because if you don't do anything, one, you have issued a de facto sort of endorsement of the behavior. Two, so you discriminate against people. You refuse to let them get jobs, and now they have to go on. They end up having to go on state aid, which costs everybody money.
Yeah, in 2009.
And they don't want that.
Yeah, in 2009, there was testimony that somebody gave. They were making close to a six-figure salary. And once they came out and transitioned, they lost their job and they ended up on state welfare. And she had a family, you know, a spouse and 2 kids that she had to support. And they ended up going on state assistance. It
Yeah.
took her about 5 years to work back up to close to what she was making
Yeah.
before.
And you never really get back.
No.
You know, you can't recover that. The effect it has really is something that's going to be long term, and you can never, you can try to play catch up, but especially if you're an older individual, you really never get there. And it's we've actually there's actually a survey which covers Connecticut transgender people in Connecticut, which I've read from before. Which is awful. The numbers are just horrible. What
Yes.
transgender people go through, and the actual discrimination that happens. It's just it's everywhere. It's out of control. It's the kind of thing that wouldn't be tolerated by anybody else, but I guess we're just supposed to accept it, according to Peter.
Well, we transgender folk tend to challenge certain religious and cultural beliefs in ways that race and ethnicity and religion, for that matter, haven't in a long time.
Yeah,
Doesn't make the discrimination right,
we do make people nervous,
but yeah, there's an element of
but that's not
of
us.
accepting the fact that gender expression and gender identity is much more of a spectrum and not a clear-cut black and white binary. Can be unsettling for people.
And I understand that.
But that doesn't justify
Right,
discrimination.
exactly.
Right.
It's like if somebody is very troubled by what I am, that's not really my problem. I mean, I'm not I'm not out there intentionally trying to sort of challenge somebody's view of the universe. It's like if they can't wrap themselves around it, then so be it. But that doesn't give them the right to discriminate against me.
Well, and one of the things, to get back to something Stacy was saying about saving money, this bill, adding gender identity or expression to the anti-discrimination laws, One of the things I think was Robin Goldberg, Rachel Goldberg,
Rachel.
excuse me, Rachel Goldberg, who used to work for Mayor Malloy
Yes.
in Stamford, and is still as a lawyer for the city of Stamford. She was making the point that when you go into an employment situation, you walk around somewhere, HR has posted that big white form about this big that's laminated that has Connecticut's anti-discrimination, and there's a list of categories. And while the CHRO ruling allows some protection in the area of employment, as she correctly pointed out, most employers don't realize it's there until they fire somebody because they're trans and get taken to court.
Right.
Yeah.
And that putting it into the law, as the protected class that the CHRO has already ruled it is, puts it on that white form that's in everybody's workspace. Every employer has it. And then everybody sees it.
Yeah.
And it's very clear to employers. It ends up being a uniform policy that gets applied equally to all employment situations across the state.
You know, there's no little asterisk behind the word sex that says, oh, by the way, it's
Sex also means.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
See also.
right.
Yeah. And if you do wind up in court over this, the CHRO ruling isn't necessarily going to,
Right.
I mean, a judge doesn't really have to take that into consideration.
It's only an administrative ruling. It can be
Right.
changed by any judge at any time, overturned.
And I believe, and there's areas I think that the discrimination law covers that the CHRO's jurisdiction hasn't been challenged in. That, well, that was what one of the lawyers had said at least. But yeah, the fact that what were they saying, that a judge can point out that their authority comes from the legislative body and what's been codified in law.
Yeah.
And the CHRO ruling, while extremely useful, and frankly, to reiterate, been in place for over a decade,
Right.
without the state burning down or hell coming to earth, much like the marriage law in Massachusetts and the one in Connecticut. We haven't seen the end of the world because same-sex marriage got allowed. The CHRO rule has been in place for over a decade without without anything bad coming about it.
Yeah.
You know, we just need to make it codified and uniform across across the law, so that more people know about it,
Yeah, and it has
so that
been,
it has teeth.
yeah, it has been tested in courts, but it's only the lower courts. It's never made it all the way up the chain. So we don't really know what's going to happen if somebody appeals their decision at the lower level.
Right.
Yeah. So honestly, we're not asking for that much. We're just asking to not be discriminated against. And both Hewitt and Gomes said repeatedly at the hearing, you know, discrimination is discrimination. It's just wrong.
Yeah, and even
that's all.
Representative Holder Winfield had made it very clear that this bill, HB 6599, really boils down to, do you want to let discrimination against transgender people continue or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're asking any of you that have representatives in the House or in the State House or Senate to contact your legislators and let them know that you hopefully support HB 6599, and you want them to, if they're on the Judiciary Committee, vote in favor of it without amendment.
Without amendment.
And when it gets sent back to the House, we're going to be asking for your support in contacting all the legislators that represent you.
Yeah, no amendments. This whole notion of exclusion, it's like nobody gets left behind. It's
No,
anti-discrimination. You can't leave somebody behind.
No, it's morally wrong, right. We've said this before, I've said this before. When you're talking about basic human rights, fundamental human dignity, is morally reprehensible to leave anyone behind.
That's right.
Right.
Like the Marines. That's right. Yeah. Nobody gets left behind. Anyway.
Yeah.
Before I'm going to change the subject here really quick. No, you can. I'm just very quickly. I just want to say hi to Chuck out there who works at L&M Hospital. I go over to L&M for my testing for my mammograms and blood work and stuff. And I always go into, they have a little coffee shop in the L&M, which I like to go hang out in, because the people that work there are so nice. And I had coffee with Chuck the other day, and he actually watches our show. So I just wanted to say hi to Chuck and say it's a really great place. It's just nice. I go in there and I have coffee and talk to everybody, and it's just. Anyway, I'll stop now. But I just wanted to say hi to Chuck, and because he told me he watches our show. So. And yes, my coffee is just about cold. But anyway, I'm sorry, go on.
No, that's fine. We still have time.
We do. We have a few minutes left.
This was actually regarding today's potential vote on by the Judiciary Committee on HB 6599. This was in the on WTNH's website. By Mark Davis, to give him credit. I'll read parts of it. The word transgender itself seems to be subject to some interpretation. Some believe that traditional sex labels are inadequate, but regardless of what they believe about that, they do believe they are subjected to discrimination and need protection. Diana Lombardi of Berlin was born a man but prefers to live as a woman and came out 7 years ago as someone who is transgender. She watched closely on Wednesday, hoping the Judiciary Committee would advance the bill because she feels it's really needed. Do you want to read your quote?
No, you can read it.
My friends who have come out at work, a number of them have been fired. One person I know that worked for 25 years at a company, when she came out, the next day they had a layoff of one person, her. Yeah. From Sally Tamarkin of CT Equality, we feel that currently our state law does not protect people on the basis of gender identity or expression. Those opposing the bill say that the sexual predators could misuse this law in public restrooms and that it could lead to other problems. Peter Wolfgang from the FIC Action says, men who say they are transgender will be able to go into women's public restrooms, locker rooms, in fitness centers, single-sex sleeping accommodations, in dorms, and so forth. But as was pointed out by Representative Holder Winfield, nothing stops a sexual predator from going into the women's bathroom today.
Yeah.
They won't have any additional access to it.
Yes, he did a very good job of pointing that out.
On top of which,
I really enjoyed how he pointed that out.
Yeah.
on top of which, it hasn't happened.
Right.
Across the country, the 1973, I think, was the
75,
first. 75 was the first gender identity protection got passed
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
in Minneapolis. So you've got over 30 years of history there, and we still can't find a single case to point to where someone pretended to be trans to commit a crime. It just hasn't happened. The sponsor of the bill says opponents are just using this issue to try and kill the bill because they're uncomfortable with the concept. We have laws that protect people from sexual predators on the books, which would still apply even if this bill passed. Sources tell News 8, and same thing Diana told us tonight, that there are enough votes on the committee to move the bill forward, that the chairs know that debating the bill will take a lot of time, and they'll get to it sometime before their committee deadline of April 15th. So we're expecting the bill will get voted on next week.
Yes.
So we have a week to remind all of our Judiciary Committee members, our Joint Judiciary Committee members, that the bill is very much needed and it needs to be passed unadorned, without amendment.
Absolutely.
So that it can then go to the House and get voted on, where we also know, if just given a chance to have the same protections that everyone else enjoys.
Yeah. It's not so much to ask.
No,
It's really not.
And well, our testimony, as well as everyone else, is available on the CGA website. If you go to HB 6599, you can look at the testimony. But there's like 95 pieces of testimony, and there's only like 3, in opposition to the bill. And there's some extremely moving testimony from mothers, from parents, from children of trans folk, across the board, all kinds of professionals and legislative bodies, and frankly, your testimony as well.
Yeah, it was. There was some really good testimony. A lot of people we know that have been through some pretty tough times, and some good stories too. But certainly, and people like Don Arsenault was there, and
who has a trans daughter,
talking about Rose, who was near and dear to our hearts, and Priscilla Lowndes was there. Priscilla has been on the show. And she has a 7-year-old
Trans son.
who's trans, who's just absolutely adorable, and
Completely.
who was last week at the meeting at our house, and
Runs around the house trying to get people to smell his socks.
he's so cute.
This is not a little girl.
No, he's adorable. He's absolutely adorable. He's 7 years old. He's just so cute, and so yeah, but it's just wow. It was
There are too many stories of people having lost their job, lost their house, lost their credit, and ending up homeless, jobless, destitute.
Yeah, the rates of unemployment,
stop.
homelessness, and abuse in the community are just horrific. They're horrific.
All we want is to have a job so we can feed our family.
That's right.
And have a roof over our heads, and just to be treated equal.
Yeah, and passing HB 6599, I think I said it in my testimony, will signal to us and our friends and our families that Connecticut is a place where fairness and equality and merit and ability is more important than fear and exclusion.
It doesn't give us any special privileges.
Right.
It
Just lets us live.
It just ensures that we have the same privileges that everyone else does, the
Right.
same rights everyone else does.
Yeah, it's important. It really is important. So obviously, we're going to talk a lot about this in the coming weeks and months.
But next week we have Jen Trass from
From
Cabo,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
which is the GLBT business lobby in Connecticut,
Right.
Yeah, it's our
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce for
So
yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
Yeah, Diana, obviously we're going to want you to come back on again, and we're going to probably be pestering you to be on the show a lot, because obviously we want to sort of be kept abreast of what's going on with this bill. This is going to be really important, and so
We've got a couple, two or three, I think we've got 2 more weeks of guests. And so by then it'll have been passed out of judiciary, it'll be in the House, and we can talk about how it moves through the House.
I'd love to come back.
yeah, we always like having you on,
Right.
and so obviously we're going to be pestering you, but it's a good thing. So hopefully we'll get to talk more about this. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, you're welcome.
And I guess we're going to say goodnight then. Huh? Anyway, join us next week. Jen Trass will be on, and then I think after that, the week after that, it's Jill Espelin. But anyway, so yes, please come back. Thank you so much for coming, and we will see you all next week.